Poverty, More Than Just a Word, by Emily Nikas and Christopher Watt. What is poverty? What words come to mind when we say poverty? What does poverty mean to you? We can all agree that poverty is a main issue facing our world today, but how should we go about defining and measuring it? In this video, we will discuss some of the varying definitions and measurements of poverty.
The first measurement of poverty, created during the 1960s, is the official poverty measurement used by the U.S. government. The official poverty measure determines poverty status by comparing a family's before-tax cash income to a set of thresholds based on a family's size and composition. It is absolute measurement, meaning it has a threshold which stays relatively constant over time. The OPM is based on the idea that there is a particular subsistence level of income below which people face economic or income deprivation, as articulated by John Iceland. In other words, it judges poverty based on the amount of income a family has, assuming that income leads to their ability to purchase the necessities of survival. It was first calculated by multiplying the annual basic nutritional needs of a family by 3 to account for other needs such as shelter, utilities, and clothing. It is a binary threshold, meaning that people above the line are considered not impoverished, while those below the threshold are living in poverty. The OPM is based on the Consumer Price Index, produced by the Census Bureau. The thresholds are calculated using family composition and before-tax income. As of September 2017, the OPM considers 12.5% of Americans to be living in poverty. In terms of the advantages of the OPM, it is easily definable and measurable, making it the most practical measurement for the government to use. The thresholds are updated yearly for inflation and consider family size and composition. Lastly, the OPM measures the basic amount of cash income needed for survival as calculated by the U.S. government. However, the OPM fails to account for many other contributors to poverty and income beyond simple cash income. For example, the thresholds do not reflect changes in the standard of living. It fails to account for different costs of living in different geographic regions. The costs of apartments, gas, and simple groceries are much higher in New York City than they are in other parts of the U.S., such as Savannah, Georgia. Furthermore, the income value does not include in-kind benefits such as SNAP food stamps, nor does it include near-cash benefits such as earned income tax credits. Moreover, it fails to take non-discretionary expenses such as medical out-of-pocket expenses and transportation to work into account. These are expenses beyond what many would consider basic needs for survival, that are necessary for many families and can be quite expensive. Lastly, because it is a binary threshold, it does not consider depth of poverty, or for that matter, how well someone is doing who is just hanging on above the threshold who could easily slip back below the line. Though it is an easily definable measure for poverty, the OPM fails to take many factors of an individual's well-being into account in needs assessment.
The capabilities approach is an entirely different interpretation of poverty, contributed by notable philosophers Martha Nussbaum and Amartya Sen. Sen and Nussbaum look at poverty in terms of capability. Capabilities are all the potential things a person can do and be in their life. Functionings are what people actually manage to achieve. Mathematically speaking, we can think of capabilities as a range of possible outcomes and a functioning as one specific point on that range. Capabilities can be broken down into 3 separate categories. Basic capabilities represent a person's ability to achieve basic needs, such as food and shelter. Internal capabilities are traits a person can learn, and combined capabilities include the external factors that may or may not make internal capabilities possible. For example, a musician has the internal capability to play their instrument but could live in a town without access to a music program. Sen and Nussbaum use capability to define poverty as the inability to meet minimally adequate capabilities to lead a dignified human life. The capabilities approach was created by Martha Nussbaum as a way of measuring poverty based on capabilities. Nussbaum identifies 10 capabilities which she claims are essential to the pursuit of a dignified life. Nussbaum believes all humans have inherent dignity, but that we deserve to live a life that is worthy of respect. The capabilities approach comes with its own set of pros and cons. While the OPM focuses on a specific fixed income number, the capabilities approach centers on the quality of life, assessing how poor people are actually doing. This aspect of the measurement humanizes poverty by seeing the poor as the complex people they are rather than just numbers. Since every human being is uniquely different, so is every poverty situation. One individual may be struggling in one capability aspect while a family may be struggling with another. By knowing more about how the lives of the impoverished, we may have more insight and direction to how to help them. One of the most important advantages to the capabilities approach, according to Sen and Nussbaum, is the freedom of choice. As we've mentioned, the OPM is binary and highly restrictive. This measurement allows people to individually assess which areas they may be struggling in and how to go about solving their own unique situations. Taking one's life into one's own hands is a major step in the pursuit of a dignified life. This makes the capabilities approach the best poverty approach based on the individual alone. Despite its advantages, the capabilities approach is certainly not perfect. Since the measure is based on abstract, highly individualized potential outcomes, it's hard to measure. It's also idealistic. While Nussbaum believes all humans should have access to all 10 capabilities, this is simply not universally doable, requiring some to choose between capabilities, what's known as tragic choice. Some argue that this is an imposition of standards, as though Nussbaum is trying to tell us how to live our lives. Most importantly, the capabilities approach is not practical for policy implementation. The United States has jurisdiction over 300 million citizens. There's just no way we can make sure every single one of them has access to all 10 central capabilities. When it comes to alleviating poverty, we want a measurement that's both effective and efficient.
A third method for measuring poverty is the Supplemental Poverty Measurement, or SPM. The SPM is a quasi-relative poverty measurement that works in conjunction with the OPM, but accounts for in-kind and near-cash benefits, diverse standards of living and geographic settings, non-discretionary expenses, and total house makeup to measure poverty. Created by the National Academy of the Sciences in the 1990s, the SPM is a relative measurement of poverty that changes each year. It recognizes that those who are economically deprived are incapable of fully participating in society. It considers economic deprivation to be more than just a lack of income. The SPM looks at other factors that affect one's economic situation, many of which the OPM fails to consider, which will be given in the following slide. It takes a more individualized and holistic view of one's situation when creating the poverty threshold and determining where an individual falls on the scale. According to the SPM, 14% of Americans are living in poverty as of September 2017. We consider it to be the best overall compromise between the capabilities approach and the OPM. We believe the SPM has many advantages. Unlike the OPM, it's a relative measure that changes yearly and accounts for changing standards of living. This takes into account the continuously increasing difficulty to make ends meet through simple income. Furthermore, the SPM accounts for geographic variance in the cost of living. It also considers in-kind and near-cash benefits, which add to an individual's income. Unlike the OPM, it takes into account non-discretionary expenses, which can put a severe strain on one's income and ability to provide for their family. It classifies a family unit or supplemental resource unit as all members living in a household under the provision of the head of the family, including children who are provided for by that individual. These factors allow the SPM to look at poverty with a more holistic approach, considering factors beyond just inadequate income or income lowness that contribute to economic deprivation and poverty. One household may have low cash income but receive SNAP and other benefits that help them rise above the poverty line. In contrast, another household may seem fine in terms of their cash income, but may have to pay costly medical expenses and take public transportation long distances to get to a hospital, causing their gross income to be far below the other families. Just looking at income fails to account for many factors that determines one's true situation. However, the SPM is not a measure that is actually used to officially measure poverty. It only works in conjunction with the OPM. It is difficult and even impractical to implement this measure because it requires complex statistical procedures in order to account for the varying situations of every individual family. Though the SPM is a more comprehensive measure in theory, it is difficult to put into practice. Yet we still see it as the best overall compromise between the OPM and the capabilities approach. This graphic illustrates the differences between the OPM and SPM in terms of how they determine and measure income as well as expenses. Please reference this diagram with questions pertaining to what each measurement encompasses.
So what comes to mind when we say poverty now? Is there really a best way to define poverty? We don't think so. We believe that poverty is not just a word. Poverty is multifaceted, and its definition must be altered depending on the audience, whether it be the entire nation or just a single individual.
We hope this video has given you a little more insight on the definition and measurements of poverty, but for more information, make sure to check out these articles listed below. Remember, in order to work on alleviating poverty in the United States, we must first understand poverty itself. As Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Alright, we were too long.
I know, 40 seconds. I was so mad. I was
know.
like, it's so good. It's so good.
I kept eating my words. I need to read it before I do that again.
What
And I
can
forgot to
we-
change the thing.
What can we do to make it smaller?
I think I'm still got some repetition I can cut out. But I don't think it's 40 seconds worth. We may need to just read a little faster too. Let's listen to a little bit of it.
No, I don't want to.